welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney, Oregon Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. Today, I have for you the second book in the X-Wing Rogue Squadron series by Michael Stackpole, Wedges Gamble. And unfortunately, it's a paperback, so my frickin' book is already messed up, but there you go. This is a good one. I remember the X-Wing series being great. But from the first two books, I don't feel that we've reached that. Because, people overhype the Thrawn trilogy, and I feel like some people might overhype the X-Wing books. I think the X-Wing books are excellent as a package, but as for these first two, they're good, but they're not great, like I remember, and I think that comes more down the line. But this book is essentially the retaking of Coruscant. That is the, as spoiler-free as possible, the gist of the book. That is the plan. Our heroes are going to go and recapture Coruscant. However, on the villain side, that is exactly what they want. And you have to read the book to find out why. But, yeah, I like a lot of the character interactions. I really like the plot, like everything going on with what the Imperials are trying to do with Kirsten Lore and Yisene Nizard and her plans. And I think the weakest character, which is kind of a problem, is Corran. I don't think Corran is a bad character, but I don't know. I just don't find him that compelling. He's fine, but I don't love Corran. A lot of people are fans of Corran, and I just don't see it right now. I mean, from what I remember of the New Jedi Order novels, he's fine in that too. I didn't love him. I was more excited to see him because it was a connection to the X-Wing books. But I don't know. I just think his character's rather bland. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nuance there. There's character. He has character. There's development. There's growth. But he just doesn't vibe with me. I don't know if that makes sense. Wedge is phenomenal in here, though. I love Wedge. Tycho's great in here. Myrax is great. Even Gavin Darklighter there's a bit more development with him here than there was in the last book. So first, at the beginning of the book, they kind of discuss retaking Coruscant, and then when that actually becomes a viable option, they go to Kessel to go get some criminals, because the idea is that if you can have the enemy of my enemy is my friend, so get Black Sun, because they've been kind of out of the picture in Shadows of the Empire, get them to cause some havoc on Coruscant to distract them, and then we can formulate a plan to take over Coruscant. Of course, we still have the running thing about the mole in the Alliance, who we still don't know who the mole is. Obviously, the red herring. Maybe it's not a red herring. For those of you who haven't read it, I don't know. Maybe it is or isn't. Is Tycho the spy? Who knows? But that's kind of like the whole thing in this book too, is the distrust, continuing off the last book, of Tycho. So they start off on Kessel. They make their way to Coruscant. They start, gathering more information, figuring out a plan, and then they act on that plan. And then they retake it. But it's fairly easy. Not completely just in a second, but much easier than it should have been. Again, that's because that's what the Imperials want. Because they've created something to stop, or they have created something to cause political and practical problems for the Alliance once they retake Coruscant. And that's about the gist of the story, without getting into spoilers. Um, like I said, I like the characters overall. Corrin is the weakest for me, which is kind of the issue because he's kind of um, shown to be the main character. And I think if the trend continues like that, with books 3 and 4, then I might have to give it to Ulston. I think all these books are good, they're just not great, at least in my personal opinion. So far, maybe books 3 and 4 will change my mind, but I do remember Ulston's books being really good as well, but for different reasons. So I guess we'll see. If you don't want spoilers, I'm gonna say very minor stuff. Really, I'm not gonna say too much. It's gonna ruin the plot for you. But yeah, I mean, if you don't want that, you gotta go. I give you a 3-second warning. So Leia appears in this book. This is our first cameo in the X-Wing. Besides like Akbar, and Mothma and Kraken, but as for like the big three, there was nobody in the last book. It was just the EU character. And Wedge, but in this book we get Leia. She's only really in the beginning of it. But she has a nice conversation with Wedge that was really nice. They also tell us it's been 7 years since Yavin, which means it's been 4 years since episode 6, which is, just a nice little time frame there. What I kind of alluded to in the non-spoiler, I didn't know if I should mention it or not, is Krytos disease. It's the title of the next book. Well, Krytos trap. But that's what Son Izard was doing. She's like, oh, okay, I'll give the rebels Coruscant. But all the non-humans are going to get infected with this virus that I've created. And the New Republic is going to have to waste time and energy to fix that problem. It will also sow distrust between the aliens and the humans if they don't actively try to stop it. So that's the dilemma she's setting up for the next book. There's an interesting section where heroes go to a museum. Wedge goes to a museum, and it talks about propaganda. Like, you have a hologram of Vader talking about the horrible tragedy of Palpatine's death and stuff like that. And it's just really interesting how that works out. We jump much further in the book because I didn't have too many notes here. I never, from Noah, Quality Autism, or literally anyone, I never, ever, ever want to hear people complain about Troy Denning. For those of you who don't know, Troy Denning will be sensual in his books. You'll have little, if you're an adult, you'll know what he's talking about, but if you're a kid, it's going to fly over your head. Most of the time. I've never seen him explicitly talk about sex, or having sex, or insinuating what sex is like, ever, in any of his Star Wars books. You want to prove me wrong? Show me in the description. Exact quotes. Because I don't think so. You know what Stackpole does, though? He mentions sex specifically as in the act, not, your sex, and says that several times throughout the book. We then get this uncomfortable, unneeded, unwanted section where Gavin is falling in love with the Bothan, or at least wants to experiment having sex with the Bothan, okay? And so Corrin goes in this huge thing about, after his father died, having a good time with this Solonian. Solonians will be a bigger thing in, the Corellian trilogy, which are like sea otter looking things. Anyway, so he decides to have sex with her, and it goes into detail about it, like how, or at least it's like, oh, it was like, sticking your thing. It doesn't say sticking your thing, but it's like, going between a bunch of rocks and until you find that sweet, amazing spot in the center, and you're like, why am I hearing about this? Who cares? What does this have to do with the story? Nothing at all. And it's just, it's just pointless. And I don't know. I mean, I get it. Corrin's not a bigot. He's willing to have sex with aliens, I guess. But it was this whole thing like, you can make it work if you're really in love, but there's a lot of issues that come with having sex with different species or and it's, why though? I mean, I guess for Gavin's character because he wants. I just it was more than Denning has ever done, and it was unnecessary. So I never want to hear it. Unless you're going to complain about Stackpole's books, don't talk anymore. Oh my gosh. Anyway, there is a really sweet scene though. Later, a little bit further, with Corrin and Myrax, where Corrin basically asks her out before the final mission, which was nice because I really like their chemistry. It's probably one of the top 5 relationships in the expanded universe. So they do the whole mission. They go to retake Coruscant, and it's successful. But it's really easy, except that Corrin is presumed dead because they cannot find him. And Tycho is being put on trial. Details within the book explain why, but that's where we're left off for the next book. Of course, if you read the epilogue, then you know that Corrin is most definitely alive, and he is trapped somewhere with Yassine Izard. Where could he be, you might say? I don't know, maybe it's a thing that's been mentioned a few times, but I don't think that is really revealed to the next book. But I mean, it's the Lusenka, it's the ship of hers. But that's not really a spoiler. It's more a spoiler of where is the Lusenka, so I won't spoil that, But overall, it's a good read. It's not the best thing on the planet. I think there are books down the line in the X-Wing novels that are better, but it's a solid read. I do also like the little sprinkling of Warlord Zinji, because that keeps getting brought up, and that'll be a thing in the Olston books, and that'll be a thing in Wolverton's book. And so I just really like that kind of thread that's being made. But yeah, overall, fun time. If you like the first X-Wing book, you're going to like this one. And I guarantee you're going to like the next one. But you know when it'll become peak X-Wing? When Booster Tarek finally shows up. I love that guy. But anyway, guys. Until next time. May the Force be with you.